Welcome to Tradiers, the Trader's Edge. I'm Jim Iuorio. That's Iaccino. I should say critically acclaimed show.
It's a critically acclaimed show.
Critically acclaimed. It's been called Smart and Irreverent. And what did he say about us too?
So we were idiots?
Smarter than they look, or smart for a couple of dumb dagos or something like that. I mean, it was a compliment, but, not 100% compliment. But we are critically acclaimed, so you can take that to the bank. How are you doing, Robert?
Good. I'm very uncomfortable when people tell us we're smart and irreverent.
Irreverent? Well, we are smart and irreverent, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not as smart as I think I am, but I'm pretty sure I'm not dumb, too.
I'm positive I'm not as smart as I think I am.
Right, exactly.
100% positive of that.
Yes. So let's, today was a big day. Today we mysteriously lost, boom, 818,000 jobs over the last year that had been estimated by the BLS non-farm numbers, which, by the way, guys like you and I the whole time, we're looking at those numbers, looking under the hood, testing the wires and saying, you know what? There is a lot of bullshit under this hood. And now other people are beginning to see it too. But the question is, nefarious, honest mistake, where are you at?
So this is sort of a double secret revision, if you think about it, because you and I have commented a lot, and I don't want to say too much before our guest comes in, but if you take that 12-month period that they just revised, which is April of 2023 to March of 2024, that's 12 non-farm payrolls number. 8 of those were revised lower a month later.
Anyway, yeah.
And one of them was flat. So that basically means 3 were revised higher and 9 were either flat or lower. The one that was flat was 150,000 jobs. So it just isn't that big of a, they've been revising them every single month. Yeah. And a lot of us have been talking about them. And now we get the biggest revision in either direction, because again, they do this every year. Yeah. It's not like a shocking thing. This is the first time it's ever been news that I can remember, because it's the biggest revision in either direction since 2009. There's where you start thinking, okay, why? What's the timing? Is it the election? Probably not. That's a ways away. But we got Jackson Hole, and we had a guy that probably wants to cut 50, but doesn't really have enough reasons to.
Right. And if he thinks the neutral rate is 3.5, then he has a way to go, to get it to 3.5. So cutting 50 is fine. Okay. So you guys know, I always say this when we bring in our guests, you guys know Bobby and I, we have a lot of opinions. Some of those opinions might be bullshit. One thing you cannot deny is that we get great guests. And today we're not going to disappoint again. We have Kevin Lex Luthringshausen from Tradier. Welcome, Kevin. So I want you to know something, is that since I drank Eagle Rare at your house, like that was my gateway bourbon. I've actually been drinking bourbon now.
You have. You did the Irish goodbye on us, though. I won't forget it. Jim.
Always.
And expect it. I'm the king of the Irish goodbye.
One of my neighbors about the Irish goodbye in this particular case is we both enjoy Lex personally so much. And you left, and I had like double the reason to stay, because I'm like, Jimmy just left. Well, I'm not going to just leave him here by myself.
That would be horrible.
Agreed to leave, but I literally blinked. I'm like, where'd he go? Lex is like, I don't know. I turned around to fill his class.
Like a magician.
I did not know he was one of the Irish goodbye guys. That was phenomenal. Good to see you guys, man. Thanks for having me on. This is awesome. I never get to be the hot seat here. I hope I'm not the hot seat, because you guys are talking about things I don't even know about, but I'm going to learn.
You're going to know about this shit we're going to talk about now, because you get the first question. What we just asked Bobby is that when you look at the bullshit with the BLS, do you think there is some nefarious element to it, or is it just the birth-death model that screws it all up?
I don't know, man. I think if it's coming from the current administration, I am skeptical always. I hate to say it. I know I'm going to get like booze and yada yada on that, but I just think they look at us and lie. I don't know. I that's what I find.
Yeah, I will say this too.
It's incessant too.
Yeah, and I don't have higher hopes for Republicans either. I consider myself a libertarian. I vote for the lesser two evils, but the Democrats do seem to have a thing about lying.
Yeah, you say libertarian too. I just realized that I think I'm the same thing. Not today, I just realized, but recently.
Yeah.
Because I think the government's good for about 3 to 5 things, and that's about it. Yeah. Otherwise, stay out of my life.
Amen. Exactly. It's national defense. It's property rights and law. and it's some infrastructure that we can't privatize. Other than that, what else do they do well that they don't screw up?
Right. I got a little, I agree totally with that. Those are my three for sure. The only other one I probably throw in there is I get a little bit of a bleeding heart for people who can't help themselves.
Oh,
now, if you're not trying and you're sucking off the nipple, forget about it. You're not part of the equation. But there are probably truly people who really have difficulty, and I'm okay with some tax dollars going there. I don't, listen, I want them to be working. Don't get me wrong.
Yep.
But if they really, really, truly can't, okay, here's my handout.
Sure. No doubt. Like places like, I don't know if you're familiar with Misericordia over in Rogers Park, which my two nephews live.
Yep.
These places that help, particularly like people who literally cannot help themselves, I think they should get every tax break they can. They should get tax dollars, but they run a lot on private donations too. So, the public-private hybrid is probably an excellent model for that.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I'm a libertarian too.
Yeah. We're all in the same boat now.
Hey,
yeah.
What about Bob?
Well, Bob's a libertarian for sure, but
Yeah.
that means specifically that we're not a club. You can't be a libertarian in a club. We're individualists. So we're together, but we are not one of those collective bullshit where together we are going to fight you, right?
Yeah, it's one of those things where libertarian, like if you go to a libertarian convention, they will say you're not a libertarian because you believe there might be a small role for government somewhere other than enforce the laws and secure the borders, which obviously
Yep.
we don't do right now. But
Right.
speaking of that, I want to posit a theory to you guys, because when you look at non-farm payrolls, right, you got the establishment survey and you got the household survey, and those are exactly that. They're surveys, right? They call up employers. I think it's somewhere in the range of like 2 or 3 or 6,000. It's a 4-digit number of the amount that they survey. And they say, how many people did you hire and did their wages go up or down by how much? And I mean, there's more to it than that, but that's basically what they do. Both of those. They do not ask immigration status. Now, you see where I'm going with this.
Yes.
This particular revision is for unemployment insurance taxes paid. So they actually go and collect the data of unemployment and taxes paid per person, and they count those numbers. Now, if you hire someone illegally, not that any of us ever have, if you hire somebody illegally, you don't pay their unemployment insurance. You pay them cash, or you just, do the best you can. Whatever you do, you don't necessarily pay them. So I think a big chunk of that has to do with the amount of, I'll call them undocumented workers to be nice, the amount of undocumented workers that were let across the border over the last 2.5 years.
Could easily be.
Yeah.
Thoughts on that, Lex?
No, I think that's absolutely correct. I think that there's probably more going on of that than we know, to the nth degree, right? So I really think that's a great point, Bob. That's probably what's going on here for sure. Do you think we're ever going to get this border sealed? Is this ever going to happen, no matter who's in office?
It's crazy to me because I think the Republicans, there's probably some Republican, industrialists who capitalize on the cheaper labor. But I have to think it's the Democrats who want it open more. I mean, Trump ran on shutting down the border and probably would have shut down the border if they gave him the funds, which, by the way, was $35 billion. It's literally 1/5 of what we've sent to Ukraine to help them protect their borders. And nobody voted for it, which was absolutely ridiculous too. So I do think that we could get a better controlled border with Republicans. Am I naive to think that, you think?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think that's probably accurate. The issue I have with it is, like, regardless of which party you're looking at, both parties over the last 2 decades have had the White House and the Congress, and they talk about immigration reform and they never do it. They never do it. And I think most thinking people would agree that educated immigration and non-criminal immigration would be good for the country overall, where you actually allow them to come in once they've been vetted. And, I'm speaking again as parents. I've said this before on the show and others. Both my parents are immigrants. They're both legal immigrants. And they came in through what at the time was a family lottery system, both of them, where, people were in sort of this lottery and they checked your background. If you had any criminal background in your home country, you were kicked out, even if you had won the immigration lottery. And then they were allowed, it's called chain migration, right? They were allowed to bring certain family members with them, a limited number, And that's how both my parents came here, and they met here.
Mm-hmm.
So having been the child of legal immigrants, people always think, well, your parents were lucky. 100% they were. They won a lottery
Right.
to get here. So they were 100% lucky. It was actually their parents that did. So they were 100% lucky. But had they been criminals in their home country, they wouldn't be here. And I think that's one of the worst parts about it.
Yeah. Now we're getting the where are the criminals coming from? I think it was it Venezuela? I forget.
Venezuela is a big one. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, empty out the jails, walk across the border, have fun. We get all the crooks out of our country, send them to the United States. Why not?
It's absolutely crazy to me. And by the way, I don't see how this is politically good for them when you go to every one of like the native, the disenfranchised communities in our city of Chicago,
Mm-hmm.
like the Black community, the Mexican community. Those people are speaking up about this now. And that was a big voting base for the Democrats. I don't know if their calculus is correct, and what even was their calculus. Did they want to get so many migrants in that certain states would get more representatives, particularly blue states? That's what they are, right? Blue states. Or do they want the illegals to vote, or is it both?
Yeah. It's crazy. I don't understand. Well, let me just back up a second. So I want to jump on Bobby's point about immigration. People think when you argue about what's going on at the border that you're anti-immigrant, and that's not the case at all.
No,
Right.
There's a critical word in the whole phrase. It's called illegal,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, that's crucial. And everyone I argue with, I'm like, listen, I'm not against immigration at all. That's how America was built, for God's sakes. It's not the case. It's the illegal part. What don't you get about this? This isn't hard to understand.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I've got
It's actually something you want immigration when you have a
100%.
negative replacement rate on birth rates.
Right.
Which we're just creeping into. America just crept into negative replacement rate on births. So you need immigrants in order for the country to maintain
That's right.
any sort of economic strength. Although I had somebody tell me recently that it's good to have negative birth rates now because of AI, because we're going to need fewer workers. 50, I don't know how accurate that is. I actually have a question for Lex, and to a certain degree, Jimmy as well. Lex, you're an options expert, as much as anybody can be called one. Have you seen anything that the average trader can see in sort of the front-facing options world that has told you anything? In other words, skew or the VIX or anything that like the normal person watching us can go, I'm going to start looking at this every day to see if anything's out of whack. Same to you after Lex, Jimmy.
Yeah. So good opportunity for a plug. So our summit that's coming up on September 18th, be there, 10:30 Eastern time. It is about major market events, namely the election, and how volatility plays into that, right? So make sure you're there for that. It's a free event, virtual, online. I would say that usually you see skew start poking its head up. You see implied volatility start poking its head up. Obviously, farther term implied volatility might edge itself up, which it really hasn't done. We're looking at 12, 13 VIX handles right now. I think I saw one today was a 15, which is, to me seems kind of high of late. I've even seen 12 recently. So shorter term stuff is not really doing much of anything. So I don't see any fear, at least right now. Now, I think that's probably expected as this thing draws near and we get maybe a couple of debates in here potentially. We start vetting a little bit more. We start seeing some sort of direction relative to, Kamala's really going to win this one. Then I think we start seeing some skew kick in, right? If that's the case.
Which direction? Both direction skews?
I think a Kamala kind of victory is a negative, downside sort of play.
Yeah.
I think a Trump is probably ultimately an upside sort of version. So I don't think it inverts for us on the option side. If you look at SPX, I think it kind of smiles instead of slants.
So another question then. Do you here's what I kind of do too, and I trade options every day, as you guys both know. But if VIX 12 and 13, I tend to be an options buyer, particularly when it's a hedge strategy. And VIX over 18, 19, 20, I flip to an option seller, and the same sort of hedge strategy is just premium collecting. Do you do similar things to that? Do you think that's a reasonable strategy?
Yeah. So when I speak around the country, and I do travel a lot and speak at these seminars, it's one of the things that's in the 7 deadly sins of options trading. Maybe it's the 7 good habits. I'm not sure which one, but one of the main 7 is understanding implied volatility, right? You have to have a solid handle on that if you're going to trade the option space. Someone would argue with me, when VIX is high, okay, realize is not high enough. And when VIX is low, realize isn't low enough. So you kind of get into that, if it's high for a reason, buy it. When it's low for a reason, sell it. I will not do that. I'll try to be a bit more clever. When volatility is low, I trade SPX a lot. So when volatility is low, I hate buying premium. And Jim, you might love it. I hate the sound of an ice cube melting.
No, I don't love it. It has a function for me.
Yeah. So what I tend to do there is I compute an expected value move based on the options, and I use the straddle all the time. It's not the purest way, but for me, and I always say this, it's like dropping grenades. You just got to get close. If you get close, you'll be fine. And I like to do like time spreads. So what I can do is take advantage of theta in the front month, right? And then I can buy the second 0DT or the third, depending on where the vol kind of plays. And I can play a little bit of a time spread. I did one yesterday, and being the biggest wussy on the world, I got out for a great profit and left about $4 on the table. It just lined up. It was a good thing to do. I was like, okay, good job. You're such a baby. What a wuss.
We've got like 90 years of trading on this show right now, somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
Might be a little bit less than that. And I always smile when I hear a trader with as much experience as yours or Jim's or me say, I left money on the table and I was very upset. Traders are more angry about money they didn't make than they are about losses. It's like, I took a shot, I lost, whatever. In a trade, you make freaking $1,000 per contract or per share, and you could have made 1,001. You're like, fucking $3. I could have made $3 more. It's the funniest thing.
Right. No, 100%. So to the other side of the equation on high volatility, just to finish the question or the answer, same thing, Jim. I like to push premium out. I generally like to be short premium, right? Collecting theta. And some of the retail folks that we deal with, they tend not to understand what happens in a higher implied volatility environment. It pushes deltas out, right? From at the money. So now your 20 delta looks way farther out of the money than the 20 delta in a 12 VIX, right?
Right.
And the good news about that is it's farther from at the money. The bad news is there's a reason it's farther out of the money, because the freaking market's moving around a lot more. You tend to get more premium for that, and you always want to get paid when you sell something. Like I always use the analogy, Warren Buffett's a genius, right? He sells insurance. What do we traders do? We sell insurance too. We sell premium. It's a good thing to do. But Warren Buffett's not selling hurricane insurance with the hurricane right outside the door on the coast of the country for $10,000, right? When you have a $2 million house sitting out there, it ain't happening. He'll sell it to you for $10 million. You can get it, but you're going to pay for it, right? And that's what I like to do, is get paid for selling premium.
How active are you? Sorry, Jimmy. How active are you, Lex, in terms of managing your delta with the underlying? Is that something you do a lot, or are you just like, nah, this is going against me, I'm going to just wipe it out?
Yeah. So great question. Pro trader Lex. Yes, all the time. Lex is no longer a pro trader. I don't have the access like that. I'm a retail guy now who just happens to know a little bit more than the average bear. Hardly ever, Bob, to answer that question. So what I tend to do, because I can't buy bids and sell offers anymore, which is an edge accumulation game, can't do that anymore. So I'm at the behest of the markets. And if I get midpoint, I feel like I should go to the Jewel and buy a hot dog.
Jewels.
Yeah, the Jewels. So no, I would just say I either roll things to get out of the risk, or I get out of it, period.
All right.
I just, just with the edge equation for retail folks, I tend to have very hard in my mind stops. Sometimes they're automated and profit targets, and I just live by it. Very disciplined.
Same question to you, Jimmy, because you're
because here I'm going to throw back a question to you too, because it's about your question as well. So this, I'm long. I'm always long. If we're over the 200-day moving average in the equity markets, I use in one account I express longs through call flies, right? Sometimes imbalanced depending on a bunch of other signals, like they'll be slanted to be a higher delta. But I'm long a 50 wide even call fly, 5,600, 5,650. 5,700. Okay. I put it on about a week ago or so. And we've gone right to the strike essentially too. But I'm looking at today going, oh shit, that thing can't fill out until after 10 a.m. on Friday until we hear from the chairman, and it won't fill out till then. So then I will probably, if we're around the strike still when we get to just before it, I'll just shrink that down to like a 20-20-20. That's what you guys would do too, right?
Sure.
Yeah. So just take some profit, and if it's a home run, you still you get your 17, 18 ticks by the end of Friday.
Yeah, no, I like that. Do you ever? So let's say we'll just pick a random 10 lot. You got a 10 lot on in the same kind of strategy. Do you ever profitable piece out of it?
Yeah, I love to do that too. One of the reasons I trade options is because you can scale it so much that you can put on a several of them and then scale out of it. It's like when they added the micros a couple of years ago. Like I consider the micros, if I don't have strong positions, I have just mild positions, maybe not enough time to monitor it, but I still want to be in the game. I trade the smaller stuff because, like you said, I'm 60 years old. I don't need to hit home runs anymore. I plan on staying trading for the next 20 years, but I'm not going to lose my ass. So I try to scale things. I try to be discretion is the better part of valor guy.
Yeah, and I think for the, again, the audience that I deal with now is retail, right? So having said that, one of my big things is reward to risk ratios as well. And if you have a good, expected value kind of calculator, not all platforms have it, but if you have one of those, it's a great tool as well. I like to have really, truly risk-defined strategies on. I am not going to be short units. There's a horror story from my trading days with me being short units, and I almost got taken out, right? So that'll never happen again. Now, it doesn't mean I can't do butterflies and those kind of spreads. Those are risk-defined. But I'm taking advantage of selling premium, let's say. And I think, people with a decent amount of money who can sell units, they're asking for trouble. Yeah. So I like to have it very risk defined. And one of my little rules of thumb, again, coming from the retail sort of bias, I guess, is that if I put on a position and I get to 70% of max profit, I'm starting to really think it's Dairy Queen for everyone. And I'm starting to get out.
But is that early in the trade, or as it's getting closer, does that change?
It does change. So if I most of my stuff is within a day. Let's call it what it is, right? Yeah. Sometimes 30, sometimes 60, hardly ever 60, but let's call it 30 is the honey zone. So I'll take that first third of 30, right? And say, if I'm at 70% in that first third, I'm done. I won. I don't want any more. Amen. I don't want to take the other 20 days and say, okay, whoa, look at that. I'm back to even again. So I'm putting that money in the bank and moving to the next one.
I have
Yep. Sorry.
No, keep talking.
Yeah. So I really like to do that a lot. You don't see it a lot. I think you see it with some of these iron condors and zero DTEs. So you can get that around, at Tradier, we're seeing tons of zero DTE trading. They do a lot of iron condors. There's a lot of automation, and they are putting these things on, and they're taking 40 cents out overnight. That's it, right? It might be max profit of $1.50. They're taking 40, 50 cents out. They're done. And they're just rinse and repeating. Tricky game, but if you're disciplined, it's pretty good, right? They can't afford to let that go to expiration, right? Because, bad things can happen. I'm the king of bad things, leaving it go to expiration. I just try to pay the assignment fees. That's what I want to do is, just get assigned. Right. So yeah, I highly don't recommend that, but we see a lot of it. I mean, I can tell you this bot thing is just nuts. We have so many new platforms coming on that are just automating the process, and you know how that goes. To me, it takes emotion out of the equation, right? And I am the worst emotional trader ever on a screen. And the floor was great. Forget about it. That was easy.
Emotions worked for you on the floor.
Yeah, it was great on the floor. But off floor, I'm second guessing. I'm doubling up. I'm like, oh, wow, look at that. I'm losing. Oh, let's do it again. Woo! Let's hit another button.
So, I wanted to go in a different direction, and I'll probably come back to what we were just talking about. But I want to hit on something you just said in terms of the zero DTE.
Oh, good. That's what I want to talk about too.
Yeah. So, the iron condors or whatever else anyone is doing, whenever in my history, I saw this in the swaps market when Jim and I were both in the short-term interest rates, right? The swaps market was profitable, and then it got less profitable, and then it got less profitable and less as the spreads tightened. They started whacking our brokerage fees down to make more money off of us rather than the market, until it eventually almost went away for the most part. Swaps versus futures was basically done. And do you see a future in zero DTs on any of these things you're seeing automated? Because doesn't it, I'm not saying doesn't it, does it become more about speed of entry and exit over time as those sort of profitable opportunities get too crowded?
So so I understand the question. Are you talking about in some of the other products other than SPX, in some like equities sort of things?
Don't care, whatever.
Yeah, I think the reason the zero DT came to the foreground in SPX and SPY, to a big degree too, which I don't understand, is because of the way it's settled. It's a European exercise option, SPX, right? So you can't exercise early. So that takes that part of it out for a retail person to get assigned. And when you do get assigned at expiration, you don't really get assigned. It's cash, right? So it's a beautiful tool to be able to play that zero DTE game, right? Furthermore, you get 60/40 tax treatment on that baby still, right? Another beautiful tool to have in your arsenal. So I don't know. I don't see it. If you start taking delivery on stuff, it gets really, really goofy. And now all of a sudden, the clearing firms and the brokerage houses, they play a bigger game in terms of risk management. So our brokerage, just like any brokerage, if you're asleep at the switch at 2:50 Central Time, 10 minutes to go, and you're going to get assigned, guess what happens? The money, you're getting closed out, right? It's not like the old days, on the floor, they say, hey, we need a little bit more money, or, what the hell are you doing? Get out of it. So it's a total different game. Our brokerage doesn't even care about, I shouldn't say they don't care. I don't mean it that way, but the European exercise is beautiful for them, right? It takes a whole element of risk off the table. So,
can I add something for the people watching here too? Because the American style is that you can be exercised anytime. I traded futures for forever too, but I also trade cash equities too. And one time I had sold some calls against an Apple position, and I got exercised because I wasn't paying much attention and owed like 15 grand in capital gains tax on the Apple shares that I sold. So again, if you're going to do these things, you have to know the characteristics, and sometimes it is painful to learn them. That's all I wanted to add.
Yeah, no, that's great. Someone asked me too at SPX expiration, do you have risk of aftermarket activity?
Pin risk.
Yeah. Well, even something comes out and as a nuke goes off in California, the market's down a couple thousand handles. I thought about it for a second. I'm like, why am I stuttering on this one? I said, no, it settles in cash. There's no deliverable. Right now, if you have SPY, on the other hand, and your short puts that are out of the money in that equation, it's a delivered security. You get the ETF. So guess what? You're getting assigned on those shorts, and because the SPYs are trading 20 handles lower.
You're down. Yeah, pin risk. We always talk about
welcome to poverty, right?
Welcome to poverty. So it is absolutely a risk. And I tell you, on the trading days, I did that in Priceline once. I thought I was a hero. And I was like, God dang, I won again. And news came out, and I had shorts that are $25 out of the money. Guess what? Stock was up 50. I got assigned on them.
Really?
I was like, that leaves a mark. Ooh, that hurt.
But can I ask a quick question about this? As long as we're on the 0 days to expiration, and this is to both of you. Actually, I'm going to even start with you, Bobby. So people, the explosive growth in 0 days to expiration it's just been amazing. The curve looks like this. Anyway. Some people who I know who are pretty smart think there's some sort of systemic risk that's building. I don't see it. As a matter of fact, the more I look into it, I think that if anything, it could make shorter term one-day moves exacerbated, which sometimes trims the hedges and might even be better for longer term risk. I don't completely unproven theory, but I just can't see where big systemic risks are building because of the trading in it. Bobby, do you?
I don't see systemic risk.
That's what I mean. There's individual risk out the ass. Yeah.
I mean, I just think it's like innate within the product is a lack of systemic risk. It's a day. Like, how can you have a systemic risk for something that's over at the close?
Yeah,
I don't see it. Someone's going to have to convince me of it if there is.
Yeah. I feel the same way. There's a paper written on it that, Volmageddon is coming because of 0DT. I don't believe it either. One of the things that we look at too is we look at where dealers hold their inventory. Okay. And you can get it to the 0DTE. And from what I understand, it might not be all true, but the dealers who hold the other side of retail positions and institutional positions, the Susquehannas of the world, the Citadels, they hedge dynamically, right? And they even have a team of traders now who manage the 0DTE book. And if the overall book at Citadel or Susquehanna is getting too one-sided, they might use 0DTE to hedge that. It's a horrible hedge potentially, but prices are cheap. So you can get it kind of cheap dollar-wise, right? Mm-hmm. The other thing is that when you look at, I don't know if you guys follow the secondary Greeks, Charm and Vana and all those things.
I do not.
So some of what that means is what happens to Delta Charm, this is, when time goes by. So when dealers are fully hedged in these 0DTEs, there's no more decision making for them to hedge their position anymore. Delta has decayed to either, or it's decayed up to 100 if it's in the money, decayed to 0, and their hedge is gone. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden, that doesn't cause them to have to make very many decisions about their 0DTE book because there's no more hedging to do, right? Now, we have software that tells us where hedging is left undone at the end of the day or toward the end of the day. And sometimes you see movements around those undone places, but it's very minor. Like you said, Bobby, it's once they're hedged, it's over, right? And I don't see a massive, Volmageddon situation because of 0DTE in this thing. Does that all make sense at all?
That makes good sense, I think. But I have another follow-up question to that then.
Okay.
Being someone who brokered short-term interest rate options for a long time, I had some guys, particularly Bank of Canada, Royal Bank of Canada, RBC was a client of mine, and they had a risk manager who tapped them on the shoulder and say, oh, by the way, in your position, there are these gaps that you have to hedge now before this number with options. So he'd buy 10,000 cab put spreads for me just to satisfy a trade he didn't want to do. We'd laugh about it, but like, I love that risk manager. Trade he didn't want to do. He thought it was a waste of money. Are you seeing within those portfolios at Susquehanna and the Citadels, do they have risk managers who just walk the room saying, dude, you got too much exposure, it needs to be hedged right now, you think?
I think it's probably a lot more automated. I still, one of my, one of our employees from our firm days, he still works at one of the bigger market making shops. He is the partner in charge of risk, and he will get on the horn, literally on the horn, and say, you've got too much, fix it. And if they don't, guess what? He does.
Yeah,
he does. So they're on that, hawks.
Right.
For sure.
But so I have a question for both of you. So I still to this day teach risk when I'm called upon to do it, risk for retail traders. And one of the things I've always done, and I'm curious if either one of you guys do it. As a matter of fact, I did it August 5th when the S&P collapsed and VIX went up to, I think it was 65 or so. Mm-hmm. I sold put spreads, right? But I did not sell the size that I normally would, right? I use position size. If I had to put risk tools in order of importance, position size would be number one for me. Because when I look and I say, okay, where's my stop need to be? So I think just logically, when vol is really just a measure of ranges, right? If you want to simplify it to the most simplest possible thing, stocks that move in higher ranges have higher vol. Stocks that move in smaller ranges have smaller vol, theoretically. There's other factors, obviously. So to me, when I see something's a stock or a market itself, I see the vol spike, the ranges have expanded. So when that happens, I shrink my position size. Mm-hmm. So I'm that guy that almost no matter what position I put on, I've got the same dollar amount of risk. And oftentimes, depending on the risk to reward ratio, I've got the same profit in it because I never trade without targets. And I want to qualify that by saying a target is a place where an action needs to be taken. It's not necessarily where you exit it. It could be where you tighten a stop. It could be where you partially exit. For some people, it could be where you add if you're a long-term trend follower, right? So I always trade with targets. I always have either a mental stop or a stop in the market. The position size is where I tweak. Have either of you guys ever experienced that, or you just say, well, this is the size I trade and that's that?
I'll start with that. Position size is one of the single most important things for me, because I can tell when I have on too much of something and too much risk, because all of a sudden my body temperature goes a little higher. I start sweating a little bit. I'm not even joking, really. And I know that I'm not thinking is good as well when I have that much risk on. So then I know I must dial it back to a smaller position size in order to think clearly. And if that just means that I'm going to spend the next 20 years being a 5-lot trader, great, so be it. And that's what I'm going to be.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I'm on board that too. I tend to kind of metric it as, 1 to 2% of equity is what I like to risk on any one position. Again, I'm a retail guy now, so my positions are defined. It's not like the trading days where I got this hodgepodge of stuff on my sheets. That's just a massive position, right? So that was differently defined. But I'm talking as a retail person, any strategy I deploy about 1 to 2%, maybe a little bit more depending. And sometimes it's mostly depending on implied volatility. So I'm very disciplined about that as well. Just maybe look at it just slightly different. That's all.
I like to say to people that when, Lex, when you were talking about taking a certain amount, it's like you've got 70%, you're done. I was, CJ Mendez agrees with us. Position size is numero.
Amen, CJ.
I like
Yeah.
I always like to tell people that when you're in a restaurant, which the three of us did recently, we went to a restaurant together.
It was a restaurant. I can't remember what it was called.
Yeah, what was it called again?
Rance Valentine opened
unbelievable place.
Monday.
Unbelievable. Michelin star now.
That's right.
Michelin star, lunch specials, half price on all days. That's not actually true, everybody. So don't go. No, when you cover a trade and then you not focus, but you continue to watch that security or that underlying or that options position, whatever it was, you're just driving yourself crazy.
No doubt
it's
about
like
it.
leaving a restaurant with your doggy bag and walking by all the other tables going, I want to take that one too. I want to take that one too. I'm going to take that guy's burger. I'm going to take that guy's cheese curds. It's like, I got my food. I'm leaving. I don't care what else happens in the rest of the world.
I know.
Amen to that, by the way. You can drive yourself crazy. There are a million things to trade out there. Just move along. Just look at your charts. Identify your setups and move along. If you can drive yourself absolutely bonkers looking at what you could have made.
Yeah. So here's the bad news about one of our system that I use, right? When you close the trade out, it's still in your order panel and you can see where you close it out. It's a filled trade. So I have this horrible habit of hitting that button and I can see where I closed it and I can see where it's currently trading right now in time. And that's how I knew that I left $4 on the table the other day. I go, son of a bitch, it's $13 I got out at $9. Are you kidding me? So
I think traders have short memories, and that's the problem with that, right?
I know.
So here again, all of us are somewhere in the range of 30 years of trading, and we still do that shit. I mean, I literally, we have short memories. And if you go and let's say 3 days later, you have another trade and you're like, I should get out here. Then you think, yeah, but on that other trade, I left $4 on the table.
Yeah.
I'm gonna hold off this time. That is inevitably when the thing turns against you. Right at the moment you think that.
That's true. I never talk about the ones where I get out at 9 and it's trading 7 by the end of the day. And I'm like, oh, wow, what a hero I am. I don't talk about those.
See, I talk about those ones too. Yeah.
I'm telling you, I've bought the low and sold the high 4 times. 4 times.
I don't think I've ever done it, ever.
Okay, so here's another question I have too. We talked a little bit about the election as a binary event, which feeds in very, very nicely with the options discussion too. Options were born and raised as a risk mitigation tool. I love to use them for speculative trades, but I love when a ton of other people are using them for risk mitigation, creating opportunities. But anyway, we are going into the election. She has just in the last week said 28% corporate tax, 44% capital gains tax. Another outlier, which could be inflationary, boost asset prices, $25,000 to anyone who wants to buy a new house or first-time home buyers, whatever bullshit it is. These are asinine policy initiatives without any question. But my question is if in a month she's still polling on predicted as well as she is, which is 58 to 45 right now, will puts start to get extra juice in them with people thinking, because I mean, the taxing unrealized capital gains, which by the way, I didn't even mean that part. I didn't even say that part. Taxing unrealized capital gains, which is the same as just confiscating people's assets, but it could be extremely market negative. Do you think we are going to see out of the money puts being bid to the sky for a month?
I don't know about bid to the sky, but definitely bid.
Mhm.
So look at it. That can't be good for the market at large, can it? I mean,
No.
tell me where I'm wrong on that one. I can't figure that.
Speaking of
Someone
tell me when Jeff Bezos has got to sell 2% of his Amazon stock, because if I know that, it would be irresponsible for me not to front run him. Anyway, please.
Yeah, no,
sorry to cut you off.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, it's not just Bezos. You got Elon out there too, who's got a pretty good pile of stock in Tesla, right?
Oh,
Bam. And plus, don't forget, there's plenty of investors have it too. What are they going to do? They're going to collar that thing. They're going to buy puts, sell calls, and you know what? Market makers aren't stupid. They're not going to sit there and say, "Oh yeah, I'm going to let you sell. I'm going to let you buy all these puts from me at this price." Guess what's happening? Curve goes nasty in that situation. So yeah, I think that is potentially skew positive. Downside put skew really.
And Bobby, are you going to buy extra puts if that looks like it's going to be the case? A Kamala victory?
No, I don't think I will. I think I'll be flat if it looks like it's going to be the case.
Yeah, I won't have a position. I know that.
Here's why. Because again, I think it was Alexis de Tocqueville who said something to the effect of that a democracy can sustain itself until the electorate realizes that the politicians are buying their votes with their own money. I butchered that, but it was something. It was
Alexis and Bill, by the way.
What's that?
Who are Alexis and Bill?
No, Alexis de Tocqueville.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Alexis. I thought you said Alexis told Bill. I'm like, who the hell are these people?
No.
I thought it was the little Amazon machine, Alexa. He's like, hey.
Alexis told Bill, right?
Yeah, no. Basically,
something about large S's in there. I know the quote.
Yeah, I butchered it. But so basically, when I see these kinds of things, so Kamala Harris, or is it Kamala? I don't know. Somebody got really upset when, what's her name? The senator from, I think she's from. Never mind. I'm not going to remember, so forget it. The way that you say her name is a mystery to me. But anyway, she had price controls. She dropped it. She dropped the price controls.
Oh, I thought that was
said it in the first place.
Oh,
yeah. So everybody started coming at her, including people on the left saying that's basically a train ride to shortages, right?
Mm-hmm.
So she dropped that. She had taxes on tips, and then she went no taxes on tips. And Trump's out there going, she stole my no taxes on tip things. She hasn't really released an economic plan yet. But back to Ted and Bill, the quote by Ted and Bill basically tells you that what she says now has zero to do with what actually happens. The only thing I believe is that if they get both houses, there's going to be a tax increase, period.
Yeah.
And it ends. And if that happens, I think that's crushing, especially now.
Yeah.
It's interesting because with the inflation we've gone through over the last 3.5 years, people forget that inflation is accruative, right? I mean, it has not gone down. We're still building on the pricing.
Yeah.
What's that?
He uses some fancy words, Jim, isn't he?
I don't actually.
Tocqueville, and he used accruative. I am impressed.
I wasn't actually sure if I said that word right.
I think you did. It's not.
I don't know. The three of us think it. That's all.
Yeah, we're pit rats, the three of us. What do we know about accruative?
But it accumulates, right? So the inflation, you add tax increases onto that, and all of a sudden you've got companies laying off more people in an environment where prices haven't gone down yet.
No doubt.
Yeah, and so that to me is just an absolute.
Couldn't be more asinine.
So I don't necessarily do it at the election. As a matter of fact, as long as the House, I should say, the Congress and the administration are opposite each other or both Republican, I'm going to stay long or be flat going into the election.
That's a good point. What's I haven't followed it, the House and Senate as much because
Me neither. Bobby?
I'm so disgusted by what's going on otherwise.
As of yesterday.
Is there a risk of that or the Republicans going to pick up some spots?
As of yesterday, it was a 68% chance that it was a Republican Congress.
Yeah,
that was as of yesterday.
Monster help. So that sounds like gridlock for a little bit.
But no way they flip the Senate?
No, the odds were they're going to flip the Senate by 2.
Yeah. Oh, when people say
Congress is
House, that's both houses.
Congress,
right.
Yeah, I got it.
So they were going to flip it by 2.
Yeah,
that's what. But I think the polls are worthless, and that's part of the reason I'm not going to hedge going into an election. I'm either going to scale back and be near flat,
yep,
or have a position that I don't really care that much about.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes the volatility we expect on these binary events doesn't really happen, particularly because people hedge for it. People didn't hedge for it in 2016 because the chance of Donald Trump winning the presidency was like 2 or 3%. Nobody believed it could have possibly been true.
Right.
And then when it happened, what did we trade down that night? Like 15% down that night. And then by 2 days later, we were higher, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Carl Icahn, the famous thing where he was giving a TV interview. He said, I'm leaving. I'm going to buy $1 billion worth of stock. And he left the interview on the night of the election. Yeah. So, to me, that was pretty wild because he bought it at the lows.
Do you think her economic plan, I mean, is she really believe that socialism is the answer? Is that her path here?
I don't.
Or is she pandering to some part of her base? I don't get it. Who believes in that stuff? Even if you're a poor person, who believes in that stuff?
No, if you even went to beyond ninth grade, and it can be explained to why price controls, particularly like things like in the housing market. You saw what just happened in Argentina. Milei lifted the rent controls, and the supply in 1 year's time has increased by like 190% of houses on the market. If you have gone through your life taking an economics class and you don't know that rent control stifles any sort of supply coming to market, you'd be more of an idiot than those people are. I think they know exactly what it is. This is my sinister viewpoint. I think the sweet spot for them is to throw out a policy initiative that sounds helpful, but actually does some damage and causes more people to depend on the government for help. I'm sorry that I believe that. I didn't set out to believe that our government was trying to screw us. I'm a data guy and I'm an analyst, and that's my conclusion that is probably the case. Am I a fool?
No.
I still can't believe that many people don't see what's behind the curtain. I really don't.
Yeah.
It boggles my mind.
And the funny thing is the people who don't see that think we don't see things.
Right.
And we see things. Like the way Jim said it, he's like, I vote for the lesser of two evils. That's one evil and two evils. Yeah. And most people are single issue voters. Okay. And I said, for me, I'm like a double issue, single issue voter. I'd like to see taxes go down, and I'd like to see somebody go to jail over COVID. That's really what I thought.
Fauci lied to us. If he lied to us, which he did, it's proven that he lied.
That's really what I'd like to see.
Dude, you worked for me and you lied to me. Not only you're fired, you go to jail.
Yeah. But to your point, Jimmy, like when you look at it, presidential elections generally end with the stock market going higher, for the most part. And that's because it's very rarely a clean sweep on the side that's going to sort of hamper business. It just doesn't happen all that often. Yeah. But your sinister side, I don't think you're wrong to think these things, because you're looking at a situation where they have finally realized where, look, I'm going to promise these guys things to get elected. And then I've got 4 years to convince them that I tried to do it and the other side stopped me.
Yep.
That's their job now.
Can I blow both your guys' minds here about tax on tips things? Okay, here we go. So Kamala Harris, when Donald Trump said no tax on tips, which I believe he thought was a good policy, I think great. People loved it. He unleashed it in Vegas where everybody's a service worker. Kamala Harris saw how popular it was, didn't say it right at first until they considered something else. What is one of their main policy initiatives? That is to move us from cash to a central bank digital currency. I think they look at it as, because that's the last bastion of where cash is most useful in the service industry, in tips. If you take away the taxable part of that, you take away the incentive to use cash, and it is one step closer to making a seamless transition to central bank digital currency. So my question to you first, Lex, is, did that ever dawn on you before? And do you think it sounds reasonable?
I think it sounds reasonable. No, it did not dawn on me. And you being in the restaurant business, I'm following your lead on that one. That I didn't even think about that, but now that you say it, it makes perfect sense.
That's what I think. Really does.
Yeah. Yeah. So first off, I want to talk about your rent control comment. The two cities that have the longest history with rent control are San Francisco and New York. Guess which two cities have the highest rent?
I don't have to. I know.
Yeah. So, I don't want the people who are trying to push these things to ever let evidence get in the way of figuring out what they want to do. In terms of the cash thing, I mean, my wife is in the restaurant industry. She manages a bar at a country club down here. And anytime we go out together, she reserves cash tips for the servers she likes. She tips the same amount every time. But if she likes them, she gives them cash.
Just keep cash in your pocket at all times. Oh, by the way, if you guys come to rob me on the street, you'll get You'll get my weapon too. You guys keep talking. You'll get this.
These guys blackjack on him all the time.
My weapon's cooler. I just can't show it on the
Yeah,
show
you're
right
right.
now.
It's way cooler.
Way cooler.
I could do it in Florida. I could show it in a bar in Florida if I wanted to.
That's right.
No, I think that's definitely a thing. And the problem with it is that they start to try and eliminate cash. Cash becomes a black market thing. Gold becomes more valuable. This is a reason why, recently, Lex, I had a gold company approach us to try and get Jim and I to be involved in what they were doing. And I said, look, we don't really deal with sponsors because we don't want to be told what to say.
Yeah.
So you got about a 10-year window where we like gold because of this kind of thing. So it really is. I mean, gold, I think the value of gold jumps in a situation like that, Jim, because you can still take it to somebody and go, look, I don't want the government to know about this. Here's 1 troy ounce of gold.
Yeah.
Can you put an addition on my house in your spare time?
Yeah. Does the crypto market play into this as well?
Sure.
In your opinion?
Yeah, I definitely think it does. Provided that Bitcoin isn't some wild CIA op, which I don't think it is.
Yeah.
But if anyone's 100% sure that it isn't, they're the crazy ones, not me. I don't believe it is. I believe it is as what it's told. I own Bitcoin. I own Ethereum. I own Solana. Is that how you say that one? I own those 3 coins, and I plan on increasing that too, because I don't believe that there's good stewardship for our currency, which, by the way, that is about the biggest understatement I've ever said. I think it's horrendous. I think that's globally the case too. And I think we're moving towards central bank digital currency. And I'd love to have a decentralized platform. I'm not 100% convinced it's going to work and be what it's supposed to be. But if it is, I want to be part of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't have any, truth be told. Doesn't mean I don't believe in it, but I don't have any.
No, I do. And it started out as a small position, but over the last 6 years, it's turned into something I actually have to notice every day because it's more.
Here's how dumb I am on this. Where's it trading? I haven't even looked at it in a while.
Right around 59,000.
Okay, I figured it was around in the 60s somewhere.
By the way, here's a market takeaway too. I think that Bitcoin has been trading in a very, very condensed pennant, and as soon as it trades 62.50 on the upside, 62,500, I think it green lights the move to 70,000, and 70,000 is the big level. A close above 70 and a half, 71,000. I think that green lights a move to 100,000.
Really
quickly.
Yeah, it looks like it was up a couple thousand today. So it's 61,250. You said 62,250?
62,500 is my level. Yeah.
Okay. 1,000 to go ish.
All right.
So here's the funny thing about it to me is that Bitcoin, it took me a while to come to grips with this, but the anonymity of Bitcoin is overstated and possibly gone. The government has actually pursued people's Bitcoin and found them because it was designed to be something that you held on a device about the size of my TV remote here, and you carried this with you, and you never put it into a computer unless you were transferring it directly to an individual. But now with all of the Coinbases and everything else, there's several ways to track, and they have found people when they've wanted to. So for a large portion of the market, the anonymity doesn't exist in Bitcoin.
Interesting.
That's number one. Number two, if Trump actually has the Treasury, which the Treasury reports the executive branch, but I don't have a depth of knowledge to know whether he can just order them to accumulate Bitcoin in the Treasury. That becomes a thing that's concerning to me because they can accumulate enough of it to manipulate the price one way or the other if they wanted to. So it becomes a concern. Neither one of those things have happened yet. And I'm an owner of Bitcoin right now, but I only own Bitcoin because I just
don't own the others.
I don't know the value proposition of the other ones.
Okay.
I really don't. I don't understand.
Neither do I. I own them anyway.
You're hedging, Jim. You're just hedging. That's all.
In case they're right.
It's a long only hedge.
I spoke at a Bitcoin conference about a month and a half ago, and I said, by the way, I wore a suit just to draw a difference to me because I'm not one of you young hippie people buying Bitcoin. And I also said, I think my calculus suggests that perhaps you guys are wrong. You guys think you're 100% right. I think there's a 30% chance you're right. But if you are right and I am wrong, I do not want to be left on the sidelines, and I'm going to be alongside with you. And they seem to be fine with that message. So I was glad with it. Yeah.
Same way a lot of people believe in God. They don't
exactly. Yeah,
it's amazing you just said that. I was just thinking that in my mind. I didn't say it. That's amazing you just said that.
Yeah,
that's wild.
The people who don't believe in God go, do you know that's a bad bet?
This is a terrible idea.
Terrible idea.
I mean,
yeah, what's wrong? You're wrong. That is
Yeah.
literally a risk to reward of 100 to 0.
100%. I'm like, you better find a way to believe, man. Come on.
It's even more than 100-0 because like a faith-based thing calms your mind too. So even if it's entirely bullshit, your life becomes more meaningful because of it. And I'm not trying to evangelize at all. And I'm not even the most religious guy in the world, but religion is a meditation. Religion is a calming thing. Yeah.
Holy water burns when it falls on you, Jim. Just
when it burns on me, I'm not very religious, right? So
I see Jim at the church every Sunday. Who are you kidding? It's right down the street from where we live.
Do you go to Holy Family?
I do.
Yeah, I love Father Terry. He's a good guy.
Yeah. I'm actually a server. Go figure.
Really?
I'm an usher.
My wife I knew that. I've seen you usher there.
Oh, yeah. My wife says, you are such a dope. I said, this is stressful. I got to go count all the people here, man. You know how hard it is to count all the people? She looks at me like, you.
I was an altar boy when I was a kid, but then the priest and I broke up.
I went to Catholic school at St. Teresa, and no priest even gave me a second look. I'm like, what? That's going to be in therapy. Am I not sexy or something? What's wrong with me? That's part of my one-man show. All right, let's wrap it up. You guys ready to go?
Yeah, good.
Good to see you guys.
Kevin Lex Luthringshausen. Tell them where to find you on Twitter or wherever.
Well, you know what I want them to find me is on the hub.tradier.com. So like these two guys, I do a show Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We always have guests too. It's kind of fun. The interesting night one is really fun is the Traders Workshop on Thursday, which is tomorrow. A couple cats on with me, Jason DiLorenzo and Mark Phillips. Great guys in the business too.
Awesome.
So you can find me there. And on Twitter at Options Brew TV.
That is awesome. I'm Jim Iuorio. That's Iaccino. Thank you. Remember this, none of this works. None of what we are all trying to create works without you guys and without the retweets, the DMs, the questions. We cannot tell you how much we appreciate it. Remember what Bobby and I, who's that? So Sterling, thank you, Sterling.
Sterling's a good guy.
We love doing this. Bobby and I are both castaways from mainstream media, being there for 20 years. We hate saying mainstream media, but we can't think of a better way to describe it yet. In mainstream media, you are always serving at the whim of producers and sponsors who are telling you what to think and what to say. We want to be part of a platform that does not tell you what to think and say. Our opinions might be bullshit, but at least they're exactly 100% our opinions, and that's what you're going to get from us here. And thank you guys for joining us. This is Tradier's The Trader's Edge.
Awesome.
You know how the financial world goes. Here comes the buzzkill. Please make sure to take some time to read this boring disclaimer. We will owe you one.